Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for registering for my Fishing Tails design. I can't wait to paint it with you. So I just thought it would be nice to give you a little video on how to prepare your background. It'll save a lot of time in class and it'll just make things a lot more comfortable for the day. So I just wanted to pop on and say hi, and I'm going to switch cameras and we will get started. So bear with me for 1 sec here. Okay, so here we are. Let me just adjust my overhead lighting. Make it really nice. I'm just going to play with the settings for 1 sec here. Okay, so there we go. So this is the piece we're going to paint. I love the name of it. My mom actually named it, so that's pretty cool. Let me zoom in for just a sec here. Zoomed in too much. Okay. So there's a nice close-up. So you guys will get the prep instructions, and there's really good colored photos in it, but this is really nice to see also. So this is on a 9x12 canvas. I'm going to demo on a 12x16 canvas. And all we're going to do, we're going to get our sky in and the water, then we'll get our pattern on and we'll be ready to paint in class together. So you can see I've got, sort of a little bit of blue up in here, a little bit of suggested clouds. At the end, I did tap in a little bit of yellow and I enhanced my blue a little bit more. And then you can see here, we've got some white, and you'll see as I kind of go along, I kind of streak my colors through, bring in a little bit of dark from the left side coming in. And then it all changes once we paint because we put in all these lovely reflections and stuff. So on my canvas, I actually just sent Rochelle the 12x16 size. So, and it tells you how far down to come. I think it was a 4¼ inches, and I just marked my suggested horizon line. So I've got my sky and my water. And I also just went in and I just did a little chalk pencil. You don't have to, but I just kind of wanted to know where that corner of my building sat, because that way when I bring in my clouds, you'll see from the colored photo that it just sort of softens a little bit in here. You can bring a little bit into the building. And I also just did a little white chalk pencil. I'll get my original out, so hopefully I'm making sense. So I marked up here so I know with my clouds, I mean, it's okay if you bring it in past, but I just tried to get it a little softer as it moved in. And then I also marked a line right here because you'll see that we end up pulling a little bit of dark through here. And I mean, it's okay if we get some into where the rocks are, of course, but it just gives me an idea when I'm starting to sort of rough in my background. So talking about that, the other thing that I wanted to talk about before we get started, so I've ordered the paints for you guys for in class. We're having problems anymore getting some of the tradition paints. So in the notes, I have changed everything. I hope I've done a good job. I had you use slate gray. And I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see. I thought it's really kind of closest. I probably have to go back in and change the notes because I think I said slate gray was the light gray, but you can see there's slate gray, and then these are the traditions. So this is the light gray and this is the medium gray. So the slate gray is, I believe, maybe just a little more yellow base, where the traditions medium gray is just a little more blue based. It's going to work. I mean, we have so many colors that go on top with the reflections and the whites and everything, that if you want to use slate gray, I'm sure it'll be fine. If you want to keep it a little more true to my original design, then I kind of played around a little bit. So I took, and I'll show you this again, I'm going to take a little bit of slate gray. So I may be wrong in the notes. So slate gray is closer to medium gray. And then I thought navy blue looks like a really nice color. And really, I'm only going to pick up like just a little dot of navy blue, just to try to get a little bit of blue in there. So you can see that it's a little more blue base now, and it's slightly, maybe a little bit darker than, actually, let me see. Sorry, guys, it gets a little confusing sometimes with these paints. So let's put out a little bit of this medium gray beside it. We can figure this out together. So that's actually looking pretty good. I'm quite happy. Okay, so that was slate gray, tiny bit of blue gives us pretty close to medium gray. And then light gray, all I would do is I'd pull a little bit of that medium gray off to the side. I'll squirt out a little bit of light gray beside this so you guys can see. So it's quite a bit lighter. So all I'm going to do is just take maybe little bits of white at a time. And mix that in. So they're just little bits. So there we go. I think that looks great. Okay, so now you can see the difference between the, what I would call now medium gray and light gray. And there's the actual medium gray and light gray, and they are close enough. So it's up to you if you go with the slate gray. When you make your lighter gray, just add little bits of white to it. Or if you want, add, you know, a little bit of blue to your slate gray, and then pull that mix aside, add a little bit of white. So I hope that helps. And then we will get started to paint. Okay, so I just put an old towel underneath my canvas. It's up to you guys. It's just kind of nice in case you want to dab off your color as you paint. And I have painted my canvas in the medium gray. So as we start to paint, keep some of this medium gray showing through. So I've got a nice big 1-inch brush, and I'm going to do the sky first. So I'm just going to dampen my surface with a bit of water, just enough so that you see a sheen, not so that it's sopping wet. What the water will do, some people like to use extenders. I like to use water. It just gives me a little bit of playtime. So then I have, this is actually a number 16 filbert. I'm going to try it. I had in the notes a 10 or a 12 because I painted on a smaller canvas. So I've dampened my surface, and I'm going to start with some light gray. And I'm just going to pick up little bits of paint at a time. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of light gray, and I'm going to just paint a little bit. You probably won't be able to see too much of this on. Actually, you can a little bit. So my surface is wet, gives me some playtime. I'm working with light gray. And we'll see, I'm not gonna overdo the light gray. I'm just gonna add a little bit, and I'll use a dirty brush, and then I'm gonna pick up a little bit of warm white, which is the same as light buttermilk. And blend a little bit of that through. So I'm still trying to keep some of my gray, my medium gray showing through. I don't want to overdo it. So really it's just little bits of paint. And now I'm going to pick up some of my light gray with a little bit of the cerulean blue. So watch the blue, it can kind of overtake. So that's why I tone it down with just a little bit of gray. And I like to bring a little bit of this blue. I might have tapped a little too much blue off. We'll see. Using a dirty brush is really nice because then as you pick up more paint each time, you might get a little bit of a different color. So there's a little bit of cerulean blue. You can kind of roll your brush over, use the chisel edge. So my guideline was kind of worked well. So I knew a little bit where my building's going to sit. If the paint's starting to set up, pick up a little bit of water in your brush. There is at the end, and it's in the notes, your colored photos probably show a little more extra blue than what you're seeing right now. We do go in at the end of the painting with a little bit of Prussian blue hue, and we loosely pull a little bit of that through. So I think that's looking pretty good. So now what I'm going to do while it's still wet, I have a nice big Deerfoot brush, and I just say, I'm just going to kiss the water. So I just slightly, you don't want to put this brush in so that it's sopping wet. You just want to kiss the water with it. So you get a little bit of moisture, tap that brush off. So it's just a little bit wet. Then I'm loading my brush into really just the tip of my brush into warm white or light buttermilk. I'm going to really kind of pounce it off. Less is more. It's always easier to go back and add more than it is to put it on too heavy. Feeling a little nervous, so I'll tap it off on my paper towel a couple of times. And then I just want to suggest a few little clouds in here. So that's looking not bad, but I actually kind of I like to take my finger and kind of just blend them through a little bit. I'm having a nice soft touch. So I kind of start a little more at the top of my canvas. I don't want to do too many of these, but a little bit of movement in my sky is nice. So you could mop and soften these, but sometimes I find just dabbing a little bit here and there with your finger works really nice. Sometimes you can even kind of like drag this brush a little bit. I've got hardly any paint on there. Maybe just a little bit more, and I think that's probably good for the sky. So see how it was nice to take advantage of that medium gray color showing through. So it was just little bits of paint that I added to it. And I think that's probably pretty good for my clouds. This is the type of thing, get it on. And then at the end, I mean, if you wanted to add a few more, you could just dry it and set it and gently kind of dampen your surface and add a few more, but I just get carried away now. So, okay, that's good for my clouds. So it was kind of nice. I sort of knew with my building how far to bring that in. Got a nice little hint of blue in there, and that brush worked really nice. So that's it for the sky. Okay, so I'm going to use the same brush and I'm going to go back to wetting my surface. I probably should have taken a couple of minutes to dry the top, and then I could have erased my little guideline, my little chalk line, but you guys can do that. Okay, so there's my surface, nice and wet, but not sopping wet. I'm going to still use the filbert brush. And now I'm going to go back into my light gray. And I'm going to start to just pull across and suggest some waves. So again, I'm going to try to keep, you know, some of my medium gray mix showing through. I don't know if you've noticed how I kind of take my brush and tap it off on my old towel. And I'm going to use a dirty brush and I'm going to pick up a little bit of the warm white. I'm just going to go in and brighten these. Just a little bit more here and there. So I didn't have you put a pattern on because like of your boat and your building, because then sometimes people try to stay away from that. And you just want this to look really natural. Even if we lose a little bit of these colors, that's okay. I kind of know where my boat's going to sit, so I'm not too worried about it. So this is the dirty brush. And you don't have to overdo this, guys, because again, there's like all the reflections and everything that go in there. That one's a little maybe too strong, so I can just pat it out with my finger. A little bit down in here. So really, this is just using the chisel edge of my brush. Just suggesting some waves, a little bit of movement. So I think that's probably looking really good for my light color. So I'm going to clean out my brush. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of my medium gray with a tiny little bit of black. Tap my brush off on my towel. And I think I lost my chalk line, but in around here somewhere. I'm just going to drag in a little bit of dark, and I'm probably up into the rocks and everything, but that's okay. There's so much more that's going to get added. This is just the initial stage of setting in a little bit of water and a little bit of movement. So this is my medium gray plus a little bit of black. I can never paint this the same, but that's good. I always say that means it's one of a kind paintings. I'm not going to take this color right down to the bottom, but I feel like maybe I could use a little bit in this bottom right. So a tiny little bit of water in there just to get my paint to move because it's starting to dry. And just little wee bits of paint. Just trying to soften this out just a little bit more. After our rocks are painted, we go in, we put in some extra black underneath to shadow them. And lots of reflections from the rocks and those poles. So I think that's probably looking pretty good. I'm happy with that. And so now I will just dry this and set it. I'll transfer my pattern lines on and then we're ready for class. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys soon. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I hope you enjoyed this little short background video. Honestly, don't overthink it. It's just fun, really loose. And yeah, we'll see you the beginning of October. Okay, bye for now.